Oops. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I started streaming. How's it going? I literally forgot. Apparently, there was like some kind of hack or some cybersecurity system died from this company. Okay, not a security or cyber attack. It was just an update or something like that. Lol. How's it going, by the way? Today I was going to do whatever it says, the title says. What does it say? Getting back into Anki. Yes. Filter follows Anki. You mean the thing that messed up every major business today? Yeah, I hear about it. See, my uncle told me, lol. Yeah, I didn't also notice on my own. My dad, apparently, like his company didn't work or something like this. And he was like, he had a job, an urgent job or something like this. And he was like, oh, I won't be able to finish it or whatever. I don't know. I didn't get the details, but it's good. I think my headache got better, but it was pretty bad earlier today. Did you go from work earlier or something like that? Today I was okay. Anki.
Los carnés hay personal para mí. O sea, llevo 4 y ya. Y sabes a quién hay que pedir las llaves de la pista.
No, I stayed the whole day, but I did take an IBO. Ibuprofeno or something like that. Ibuprofen. I wanted to browse Ankidex. Ankidex. Something like the trivia, something like this. Geography. Whoa, ultimate geography. What's this? German federal states. $89,000. The world's 2005 sovereign states. Custom study. Okay, this is too ultimate. I want simple text, something like countries and capitals or something like that. Okay, location is cool too. Login. These are the ones I have now, by the way. What is fluidity? These are my decks. These are the ones I'm supposed to study. Fluidity was something like oof. In CSS, like the percentages, using percentages or something like this, maybe. Everything is a percentage. Hard. How can you use the sort method to sort alphabetically? Pass it just like that. Or leaving it by default. It sorts alphabetically by Unicode number, converting to string by default. Yeah, I knew that. I forgot the over, but let's say hard. Are shift and pop return? The shifted or popped value? Yes. How do we control our content decisions? I forgot this one. Using media queries. Okay. Again. What's the time complexity of our pop? Okay, I don't want to do this fucking whole deck. What the fuck? O of n, I don't know. O of 1, constant time. Okay, makes sense to be honest. True. Okay. What does r slice num do? Get the first element. Returns an array with num items start from the back. Fuck. Okay. Anki web. Back. Get shared text. Geography. Hauptstädte der Welt. I don't want them in German though. Geografía de España, comunidades, provincias e islas. GeoGuessr, flags of countries that have street view. Lol. Let's see if I put capitals, what happens. Countries and capitals. Very good, but the capital is not Burundi, it's Bujumbura. It's Gitega now. Lol. Maybe I would do this. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Download. I may download something like the first 2,000 words of Japanese or something like this. I don't know. I used to do some Japanese things, but thing is, I don't want to create this fucking. Hello. I am downloading Anki. Well, not downloading. I already have it, but downloading more Anki text and shit like that. Because I don't know. I want to memorize stuff. Maybe I will do like every day on stream. I will do a little bit of this, memorizing some cards or something like this, reviewing some cards. I don't know, just because it's fun, to be honest. I saw this post on Twitter. Thank you, Anki Cards. I meant this one. Somebody asked my girlfriend what I like to do in my free time, and she said he likes to make Anki cards. And I was, interesting. I remember that I used to do them, but see, I had it over here too. And yeah, I don't know, I want to memorize things, and the first thing I thought of was like geography things, capitals, all that kind of stuff. Ultimate Geography. Learn. Study now. Bulgaria. Capital. Oh, I like this. Capital of Bulgaria. Sofia. Good. UAE. Capital. Is it Dubai? Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi. Sofia. Bulgaria. Abu Dhabi. UAE. Bulgaria. UAE. What the fuck is this? Is this the sea? South China Sea or something like that. Like this. South China Sea. What the fuck? I'm so good. Bro, what the hell? These are so difficult. I'm never getting these ones. Martinique. Guadeloupe. Overseas Department of France. It's like 3 islands. Again. Oof, what the fuck is this? Martinique. Anguilla. Territory of the United Kingdom. Again. What the fuck is this country? Albania. Kosovo is this. This is South Macedonia. No. Greece. Bulgaria. Okay. This is Guadeloupe. Okay. This is Anguilla. Bulgaria. Easy. Bulgaria, Sofia. Easy. Sofia, Bulgaria. Easy. UAE. Guadeloupe. What the fuck is this? South China Sea, UAE. Capital, Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi, UAE. Bulgaria. What exactly is Anki cards or Anki in general? This kind of a thing that tells you when, for example, this is Anguilla. So now if I say it was hard, it will give me the card again so that I memorize it. And if it was easy, it will give me the card in 5 days. So there is like spaced repetition based on how much you know the cards or not. And it has like algorithms to learn how to show when to show the cards. So you keep like digesting them, and yeah, basically that. And I had some GP, let's say something like GP2K. No, AKPG. What was this called? Ultimate Geography APKG. APKG. Yeah, so I have like these Anki decks of like Howl's Moving Castle, the movie. 4,000 German words by frequency. 625 words. Most common French words. Irregular base verbs of German. These are some I have downloaded. I have the first like 1,000 words in Japanese. So maybe I could get back into those. The thing is that it's better if you do them yourself, right? But I'm too lazy for it. And it's like better if you like intertwine things that you do. So like if you are learning or something like this, I don't know. Let's see if there are some like exclusively kanji ones or something like this. Anki web. Kanji. Kanji in context 2024. Remembering the kanji 1. 6th edition 2000. Specifically crafted for kanji in context revised edition. Let's look up the magic word PDF. This is so shady. Level 1, level 2. FSRS is now the most accurate spaced repetition algorithm in the world. This post is now updated. New post. FSRS 4.5. I have no idea what is happening over here, to be honest. Let's check file, edit, view, tools, preferences, review. I don't see the algorithm thing. I have no idea what the fuck this is. Kanji practice mode. Bro, so many things you have to do. You have to study a fucking encyclopedia to do this. Okay, I don't think I'm downloading that one. RTK. This seems simpler. What the fuck? Keyboard enter. Keyboard do. Keyboard limb. Okay, yeah, but if you don't add the reading. Yeah, like the thing would be to like get the on yomi and the kun yomi and all that, right? Maybe not. I don't know. I have no idea. All in one kanji deck. All 2000 plus JPLT, blah, 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 blah. Jesus. Okay, this does have a lot more things. Show wataru en. What the fuck is nanori? Lol. Jesus Christ. Go history 1. Go history 2. Classification phonetic. Classification compound ideographic. Classification compound ideographic. Jesus Christ. This is so overwhelming. Kanji nach Ruskom. Die Kanji lernen und behalten. Neue Folge mit Geschichten. Wer mehr Geschichten sucht, dem sie die Seite Kanji Kohi ans Herz gelegt, von der auch ich einige Geschichten übernommen habe. Ihr gelangt über einen Klick auf das Schlüsselwort zur Website und könnt dort nach meist englischen und auch deutschen Geschichten suchen. Yo, what the fuck is this page? Is it free? Register. Let's as soon as I see a text, just this block of text, I would stop reading and leave the site. Lol. Your account is configured for the 6th edition of Remembering the Kanji, Volume 1. If you have the 5th edition or older, start signing in, blah blah blah. Help. Kanji Kohi is a website dedicated to the member remembering the kanji. I mean, this has to be out there, right? Sci-Hub. Boop. Mirrors. Bro. Okay, not this. Zlib, the library. Boop. Oops. Badware risks. Zlib.io. Badware risks. Sad. Domain seized. Remembering the Kanji Volume 1. This is the 4th edition. Let's sort by year. (2007) PDF. Let's use a temp email. Temp email. Do I have to use a real email? Wait, what the fuck? I've been rejected from the Germany job, so I guess I'm not going to Germany anymore. Leave it. Bruh. Okay, we'll use this email. What the fuck? I already have an account. Lol, it says it sends me to my own email every time I stream. But it's so stupid. Why? Okay. $10 limited, bro. Finally, I can download the fucking book. PDF. Bro. Let's go. 5th edition. Okay, so now on the website that I was on before. Jesus Christ. Go to Drift. Account settings. Arteki edition. Old edition. What the fuck is this book? Introduction. Wait, not to the 4th edition. But this is the 5th. Okay, I guess the 4th edition is the 5th is like a... Bueno. I'm talking with my friend right now about the job. Okay, someone rang the bell. I'm going to go down. Oh, no, okay, they opened. I've lost you. Where is your window? Here. Okay. Finally, I can download the book. The site, no, you don't. It sends me my own email. I don't know what that sentence was telling me. No, yeah, it like notifies me that I am streaming when I stream. Like when I start stream, it sends me an email telling me Coscore Drift is streaming to my own email, like to the email of my YouTube account. Okay, my friend is telling me that this is the person. Blah, blah, blah. I logged into my account on my friend's PC. It's like, yo, I am currently in Aubulan in Berlin, but you logged in Baden-Württemberg. Was that you? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. Lol. Wait, are you in Baden-Württemberg? Or just it thought you were in Baden-Württemberg? Because sometimes when I log in to my device or something, it tells me it was logged in like El Escorial, which is like a town that is not my town, but it's like pretty close. It's like 5 minutes away. But it doesn't say like fucking Valencia or something like this, right? Ah, okay. Your friend logged in for you or whatever. Well, or maybe logged in through like Discord or TeamViewer or something like this, I guess, right? He shared his screen and I just scanned the QR PC in my phone. Oh, lol. Lunes a domingo. 8 euros brutos. 1.400 brutos. ¿Qué dices, tío? No, ni de coña. Carretillero para Bélgica. Okay, let's continue with the kanji anki thing, which was the focus of today. The aim of this book is to provide the student Japanese with blah, 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 blah. No, let's read it. This was my focus for like the fucking day. Let's properly read this. I'm actually going to read it out loud, in fact. The aim of this book is to provide the student of Japanese with a simple method for correlating the writing and the meaning of Japanese characters in such a way as to make them both easy to remember. It is intended not only for the beginner, but also for the more advanced student looking for some relief to the constant frustration of forgetting how to write the kanji and some way to systematize what he or she already knows. By showing how to break down the complexities of the Japanese writing system into its basic elements and suggesting ways to reconstruct meanings from those elements, the method offers a new perspective from which to learn the kanji. There are, of course, many things that the pages of this book will not do for you. You will read nothing about how kanji combine to form compounds, nor is anything said about the various ways to pronounce the characters. Furthermore, all questions of grammatical usage have been omitted. These are all matters that all need specialist treatment in their own right. Meantime, remembering the meaning and writing of the kanji, perhaps the single most difficult barrier to learning Japanese, can be greatly simplified if the two are isolated and studied apart from everything else. Okay. What makes forgetting the kanji so natural is the lack of connection with normal patterns of visual memory. We are used to hills and roads, to the faces of people and the skylines of cities, to flowers, animals, and the phenomena of nature. And while only a fraction of what we see is readily recalled, we are confident that, given proper attention, anything we choose to remember, we can. That confidence is lacking in the world of kanji. The closest approximation to the kind of memory patterns required by the kanji is to be seen in the various alphabets and number systems we know. The difference is that while these symbols are very few and often sound related, the kanji number in thousands and have no consistent phonetic value. Real. Nonetheless, traditional methods for drilling the characters have been the same as those for learning alphabets. Drill the shapes one by one, again and again, year after year. Whatever aesthetic value is in such an exercise, the more efficient way would be to relate the characters to something other than their sounds in the first place, and so to break ties with the visual memory we rely on learning our alphabets. The origins of the Japanese writing system can be traced back to ancient China and the 18th century before the Christian era. In the form in which we find Chinese writing codified some 1000 years later, it was made up largely of pictographic detailed glyphs. These were further transformed and stylized throughout the countries, so that by the time the Japanese were introduced to the kanji by Buddhist monks from Korea and started experimenting with ways to adapt the Chinese writing system to their own language, about the 4th to 7th centuries from our era, they were already dealing with far more ideographic and abstract forms. The origins of the Japanese system can be traced back to ancient China. Vale. In the form, it was made up of largely pictographic, detailed glyphs. These were further transformed and stylized, so that by the time the Japanese were introduced to kanji by Buddhist monks from Korea and started experimenting, they were already dealing with far more ideographic and abstract forms. The Japanese made their own contributions and changes in time as to be expected. Unlike every modern Oriental culture that uses the kanji, they continue to do so, though now in more matters of usage than form. So fascinating is this story that many have encouraged the use of etymology as a way to remember the kanji. Unfortunately, the student quickly learns that the many disadvantages of such an approach. As charming as it is to see the ancient drawing of a woman etched behind its respective kanji, or to discover the rudimentary form of a hand, or a tree, or a house, when the character itself is removed, the clear visual memory of the familiar object is precious little help for recalling how to write it. Proper etymological studies are most helpful after one has learned to generally use kanji. Real shit. Before that, they only add to one's memory problems. We still need a more radical departure from visual memory. Let me paint the impasse in another, more graphic way. Picture yourself holding a kaleidoscope up to the light as still as possible, trying to fix in memory the particular pattern that the play of light and mirrors and colored stones has created. Chances are you have such an untrained memory for such things that it will take some time. But let us suppose that you succeed after 10 or 15 minutes. You close your eyes, trace the pattern in your head, like whatever the fuck a kaleidoscopic pattern is, right? And then check your image against the original pattern until you are sure you have it remembered. Then someone passes by and jars your elbow. The pattern is lost, and in place a new jumble appears. Immediately, your memory begins to scramble. You set the kaleidoscope aside, sit down, try to draw what you just memorized, but to no avail. There is simply nothing left in memory to grab hold of. The kanji are like that. One can sit at one's desk and drill a half a dozen kanjis for an hour or so, or two, only to discover on the morrow that when something similar is seen, the former memory is erased or hopelessly confused by the new information. Now the odd thing is not that this occurs, but rather that instead of openly admitting one's distrust of purely visual memory, one accuses oneself of poor memory or lack of discipline and keeps on following the same routine. Curious. Thus, by placing the blame on a poor visual memory, one overlooks the possibility of another form of memory that could handle the task with relative ease: imaginative memory. By imaginative memory, I mean the faculty to recall images created purely in the mind, with no actual or remembered visual stimuli behind them. When we recall our dreams, we are using imaginative memory. The fact that we sometimes conflate what happened in waking life with what merely occurred in a dream is an indication of how powerful those imaginative stimuli can be. While dreams may be broken up into familiar component parts, the composite whole is fantastical and yet capable of exerting the same force on perceptual memory as an external stimulus. It is possible to use imagination in this way, also in a waking state, and harness its powers for assisting a visual memory admittedly ill-adapted for remembering the kanji. I'm not sure what he means by imaginative memory then. In other words, if we could discover a limited amount of basic elements in the characters and make a sort of alphabet out of them, assigning to each its own image, fusing them together to form other images, and so building up complex tableaus in imagination, the impasse created by purely visual memory might be overcome. Such an imaginative alphabet would be every bit as rigorous and as a phonetic one in restricting each basic element to one basic value, but its grammar would lack many of the controls of ordinary language and logic. It would be like a kind of dream world where anything at all might happen, and happen differently in each mind. Visual memory would be used minimally to build up the alphabet. After that, one would be set loose to roam freely inside the magic lantern of imaginative patterns according to one's own preferences. Wonder if it has to be like, if it has to do with like radicals or some shit like that. In fact, most students of the Japanese rating system do something similar from time to time, devising their own mnemonic aids but never developing an organized approach to their use. At the same time, most of them would be embarrassed of the academic silliness of their own secret devices, feeling somehow that there is no way to refine the ridiculous ways their mind works. Yet, if it does work, then some such irreverence for scholarship and tradition seems very much in place. Indeed, shifting attention from why one forgets certain kanji to why one remembers others should offer motivation enough to undertake a more thorough attempt to systematize imaginative memory. The basic alphabet of the imaginative world hidden in the kanji we may call, following traditional terminology, primitive elements, or simply primitives. These are not to be confused with the so-called radicals, which form the basis of etymological studies of sound and meaning. So not radicals. And now are used for the lexical ordering of the characters. In fact, most of the radicals are themselves primitives, but the number of primitives is not restricted to the traditional list of radicals. Curious. The primitives then are the fundamental strokes and combinations of strokes from which all the characters are built up. Calligraphically speaking, there are only 9 possible kinds of strokes in theory, 17 in practice. A few of these will be given primitive meanings, that is, they will serve as fundamental images. Simple combinations will yield new primitive meanings in turn, and so on. As complex characters are built up. If these primitives are presented in orderly fashion, the taxonomy of the most complex characters is greatly simplified, and no attempt need to be made to memorize the primitive alphabet apart from actually using it. I got lost. The primitives then are the fundamental strokes and combinations of strokes from which all the characters are built up. Calligraphically speaking, there are only 9, 17 in practice. A few of these will be given primitive meaning. Will serve as fundamental images. Simple combinations will yield new primitive meanings in turn, and so on. I feel like I'm in uni. A lot of information gets thrown at me, but I'm not gonna remember any of it in 10 minutes. This is not. I guess this is not This is not information to remember. Right? This is information that to start click things so that things start to click. Things like this. For example, it's like radicals. I knew what radicals were, so they are not primitive elements, right? The number of primitives as we are understanding the term is a moot question. Traditional etymology counts some 20 to 24 of them. We shall draw upon these freely, and also ground our primitive meanings. In traditional etymological meanings, without meaning in any particular. Okay, I think I skipped this. If these primitives are presented in an orderly fashion, the taxonomy of the most complex characters is greatly simplified, and no attempt need to be made to memorize the primitive alphabet apart from actually using it, which is nice, right? You don't have to remember this. You don't have to remember the primitives. It's like you start to like get them, I guess. The number of primitives, as we understand it, okay, blah blah blah. We shall also be departing from etymology to avoid the confusion caused by the great number of similar meanings of differently shaped primitives. Wherever possible, then the generic meaning of the primitives will be preserved, although there are cases in which we shall have to specify that meaning in a different way or ignore it altogether so as to root imaginative memory in familiar visual memories. Should the student later turn to etymological studies, the procedure we have followed will become more transparent and should not cause any obstacle to the learning of etymology. Nice. The list of elements that we have singled out as primitive propers, index 11, is restricted to the following four classes: basic elements that are not kanji, kanji that appear as basic element in other kanji with great frequency, kanji that change their meaning when they function as parts of other kanji, and kanji that change their shape when forming parts of other kanji. Any kanji that keeps both its form and its meaning and appears as part of another kanji functions as a primitive, whether or not it occurs with enough frequency to draw attention to it as such. The 2042 characters chosen for study in these pages, given in the order of presentation in Index 1 and arranged, include the basic established as standard by the Japanese Ministry, roughly another 60 used chiefly in proper names, and a handful of characters that are convenient for use as primitive elements. Each kanji is assigned a key word that represents its basic meaning, or one of its basic meanings. The key words have been selected on the basis of how a given kanji is used in compounds and on the meaning it has on its own. There is no repetition of keywords, although many are nearly synonymous. In these cases, it is important to focus on the particular flavor that the word enjoys in English, so as to evoke connotations distinct from similar keywords. To be sure, many of the characters carry a side range of connotations not present in their English equivalents, and vice versa. Many even carry several ideas not able to be captured in a single English word. By simplifying the meanings through the use of keywords, however, one becomes familiar with a kanji and at least one of its principal meanings. The others can be added later with relative ease, in much the same way as one enriches one's understanding of one's native tongue by learning the full range of feelings and meanings embraced by words already known. I forgot what this says. The keywords have been selected on the basis of how a given kanji is used in compounds and on the meaning it has on its own. There is no repetition of keywords, although many are nearly synonymous. In these cases, it's important to focus on the particular flavor that word enjoys in English, as to evoke connotations distinct from similar keywords. Okay, to be sure, many of the characters carry a side range of connotations not present in their English equivalents, and vice versa. Many carry several ideas not able to be captured in a single English word. By simplifying the meanings throughout the use of keywords, however, one becomes familiar with a kanji and at least one of its principal meanings. The others can be added later with relative ease, and in much the same way, as one enriches one's understanding of one's native tongue by learning the full range of meanings. But okay. Once we have the primitive meanings and the keyword relevant to a particular kanji, cataloged in Index 4, the task is to create a composite ideogram. Here is where fantasy and memory come to play. The aim is to shock the mind's eye, to disgust it, to enchant it, to tease it, or to entertain it in any way possible, so as to brand it with an image intimately associated with the keyword. That image, in turn, inasmuch as it is composed of primitive meanings, will dictate precisely how the kanji is to be penned, stroke for stroke, jot for jot. Many characters, perhaps the majority of them, can be so remembered on a first encounter, provided sufficient time is taken to fix the image. Others will need to be reviewed by focusing on the association of keyword and primitive elements. In this way, mere drilling of visual memory is all but entirely eliminated, since the goal is not to simply to remember a certain number of kanji, but also to learn how to remember them. and that's not included in this book. The course has been divided into 3 parts. Part 1 provides the full associative story for each character, by directing the reader's attention, at least for the length of time it takes to read the explanation unrelated to the written form of the kanji. Most of the work is done for the student, even as a feeling for the method is acquired. In part 2, only the skeletal plots are presented, and the individual must work out his or her own details by drawing on personal memory and fantasy. Part 3, which comprises the major portion of the course, provides only the key word and the primitive meanings, leaving the remainder of the process to the student. Ouch! It will soon become apparent that the most critical factor is the order of learning the kanji. The actual method is simplicity itself. This is interesting. Once more basic characters have been learned, their use as primitive elements for their kanji can save a great deal of effort and enable one to review known characters at a time, as one is learning new ones. That is pretty fire. Hence, to approach this course haphazardly, jumping ahead to the later lessons before studying the earlier ones, will entail a considerable loss of efficiency. If one's goal is to learn to write the entire list of generally used characters, then it seems best to learn them in the order best suited to memory, not in order of frequency or according to the order in which they are taught to Japanese children. Right? This is my main gripe with how I'm learning kanji right now with my mom. My mom is teaching me like how kids learn, and to me, obviously, like that is not relevant anymore. That's why I feel frustrated. Should the individual decide to pursue some other course, however, the indexes should provide all the basic information for finding the appropriate frame and the primitives preferred in that frame. It may surprise the reader casually leafing through these pages not to find a single drawing or pictographic representation. This is fully consistent with what I said on placing the stress on imaginative memory. Oops. For one thing, pictographs are an unreliable way to remember all but very few kanji, and even in these cases, the pictograph should be discovered by the student by toying with the forms pen in hand rather than given in one of its historical graphical forms. For another, the presentation of an image actually inhibits imagination and restricts it to the biases of the artist. This is true for the illustrations in a child's collection of fairy tales as it is for the various phenomena we shall encounter in the course of this book. Curious opinion. The more original work the individual does with an image, the easier it will be to remember a kanji. Before setting out on the course plotted in the following pages, attention should be drawn to the few final points. In the first place, one must be warned about setting out too quickly. It should not be assumed that because the first characters are so elementary, they can be skipped over hastily. Okay. Got it. The method presented here needs to be learned step by step, lest one find oneself forced later to retreat to the first stages and start over. 20 or 25 characters per day would not be excessive for someone who only has a couple of hours to study. If one were to study them full time, there is no reason why the entire course could not be completed successfully in 4 to 6 weeks. Jam. By the time part 1 has been traversed, the student should have discovered a rate of progress suitable to the time available. Second, the repeated advice given to study the characters with pad and pencil should be taken seriously. While simply remembering the characters does not, one will discover demand that they will be written. There is really no better way to improve the aesthetic appearance of one's writing and acquire a natural feel for the flow of the kanji than by writing them. The method will spare one the toil of writing the same character over and over in order to learn it, but it will not supply the fluency at writing that comes only with constant practice. If pen and paper are inconvenient, one can always do with the palm of the hand, as the Japanese do. It provides a convenient sketch space for jotting on with one's index finger when riding on a bus or walking down the street. Funny. My throat hurts. Third, the kanji are best reviewed by beginning with the key word, progressing to the respective story, and then writing the character itself. Once one has been able to perform these steps, reversing the order follows as a matter of course. More will be said about this later in the book. In the first place, review with the keyword, progressing to the respective story and then writing the character. In the fourth place, it is important to note that the best ordering for learning the kanji is by no means the best order for remembering them. They need to be recalled when and where they are met, not in the sequence in which they are presented here. For that purpose, recommendations are given in Lesson 5 for designing flashcards for random review. Interesting. Finally, it seems worthwhile to give some brief thought to ambitions one may have about mastering the Japanese rating system. The idea arises from, or at least is supported by, a certain bias about learning that comes from overexposure to schooling, a notion that the language is a cluster of skills that can be rationally divided, systematically learned, and certified by testing. The kanji, together with the wider structure of Japanese, and indeed of any language for that matter, resolutely refuse to be mastered in this fashion. The rational order brought to the kanji in this book is only intended as an aid to get you closer enough to the characters to befriend them, let them surprise you, inspire you, enlighten you, resist you, and seduce you, but they cannot be mastered without a full understanding of their long and complex history and an insight into the secret of their unpredictable vitality, all of which is far too much for a single mind to bring to the tip of a single pen. That having been said, the goal of this book is still to attain native proficiency in writing the Japanese characters and associating their meanings with their forms. If the logical systematization and even the playful irreverence contained in these pages that follow can help spare even a few of those who pick the book up the grave error of deciding to pursue their study of the Japanese language without aspiring to such proficiency, the efforts that went into it will have more than received their reward. Sheesh, I'm tired. Kanji para recordar, curso mnemotécnico para el aprendizaje de la escritura y el significado de los caracteres japoneses. In preparing a new Leyaton typesetting for this fourth edition, I was tempted to rethink many of the key words and primitive meanings and to adjust the stories accordingly. After careful consideration and review of the hundreds of letters I have received, as well as the changes that were introduced in the French and Spanish version of the books, I have decided to let it stand as it is with only a few exceptions. There are, however, two related questions that come with enough frequency to merit further comment at the outset. The use of this book in connection with formal courses of Japanese and the matter of pronunciation or readings of the kanji. The reader will not have to finish more than a few lessons to realize that this book was designed for self-learning. What may not be so apparent is that using it to supplement the study of kanji in the classroom or to review for examinations has an adverse influence on the learning process. The more you try to combine the study of the written kanji through the method outlined in these pages with traditional study of the kanji, the less good this book will do you. I know of no exceptions. Sheesh! Virtually all teachers of Japanese, native and foreign, will agree with me that learning to write the kanji with native proficiency is the greatest single obstacle to the foreign adult approach in Japanese, indeed so great as to be presumed insurmountable. After all, even well-educated Japanese study the characters formally for 9 years, use them daily, and yet frequently have trouble remembering how to reproduce them, much more than English-speaking people have the infamous spelling of their mother tongue. It is not unrealistic to expect that even with the best intentions of study methods, those not raised with the kanji from their youth should manage the feat. Such an attitude may never be actually spoken openly by a teacher standing before a class, but as long as the teacher believes it, it readily becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This attitude is then transmitted to the student by placing greater emphasis on the supposedly simple and more reasonable skills of learning to speak and read the language. In fact, as this book seeks to demonstrate, nothing could be further from the truth. Lol. To begin with, the writing of the kanji is the most completely rational part of the language. Over the centuries, the writing of the kanji has been simplified many times, always with rational principles in mind. Aside from the Korean Hangul, there may be no writing system in the world as logically structured as the Sino-Japanese characters are. The problem is that the usefulness of this inner logic has not found its way into learning the kanji. On the contrary, it has been systematically ignored. Those who have passed through the Japanese school system tend to draw on their own experience when they teach others how to write, having begun as smart children in whom the powers of abstraction are relatively underdeveloped. and for whom the constant repetition is the only workable method, they are not likely to ever have considered reorganizing their pedagogy to take advantage of the older students' facility with general principles. Curious. So great is the neglect that I would have to say that I have never met a Japanese teacher who can claim to have taught a foreign adult how to write the basic general use kanji that all high schoolers graduates in Japan know. Never. Whoa. Nor have I ever met a foreign adult who could claim to have learned to write at this level from a Japanese teacher. Sheesh. I see no reason to assume that the Japanese are better suited to teach writing, because it is, after all, their language. Given the rational nature of the kanji, precisely the opposite is the case. The Japanese teacher is an impediment to learning to associate the meanings of the kanji with the written form. The obvious victim of the conventional methods is the student, but on a subtler level, the reconfirmation of unquestioned biases also victimizes the Japanese teachers themselves, the most devoted of whom are prematurely denied the dream of fully internationalizing their language. Guy spitting fire right now. There are additional problems with using this book in connection with classroom study. For one thing, as explained earlier in the introduction, the efficiency of the study of the kanji is directly related to the order in which they are learned. Formal courses introduce kanji according to different principles which have nothing to do with the kanji, with the writing. More often than not, the order is in which Japanese Ministry of Education has determined blah 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 is the main guide. Obviously, learning the writing is far more important than being certified to have passed some course or other. And just as obviously, one needs to know all the general use kanji for them to be used for the literal adult. When it comes to reading basic materials, such as newspapers, it is little consolation to know half or even 3/4 of them. The cultural question for pedagogy, therefore, is not what is the best way to qualify at some intermediate level of proficiency, but simply how to learn all the kanji in the most efficient and reliable manner possible. For this, the traditional levels of kanji proficiency are simply irrelevant. The answer, I am convinced, lies in self-study, following an order-based learning all the kanji. Sheesh. I do not myself know of any teacher of Japanese who has attempted to use this book in a classroom setting. My suspicion is that they would soon abandon the idea. The book is based on the idea that the writing of the kanji can be learned on its own and independently of other respect to the language. It is also based on the idea that the pace of the study is different from one individual to another, and for each individual from one week to the next. Organizing study to the routines of group instruction runs counter to those ideas. Curious. This brings us to our second question. The reasons for isolating the reading of the kanji from the pronunciation follow more or less as a matter of course from what has been said. The reading and writing of the characters are taught simultaneously on the grounds that one is useless without the other. This only begs the basic question of why they could not better and more quickly be taught one after the other, concentrating on what is for a foreigner the simpler task, writing, and later turning to the more complicated, the reading. Not sure what he said here. One has only to look at the progress of non-Japanese with kanji to see the logic of the approach. When Chinese adult students come to the study of Japanese, they already know what the kanji mean and how to write them. They only have to learn how to read them. The progress they make in comparison with their Western counterparts is usually attributed to their being Oriental. In fact, Chinese grammar and pronunciation have as much to do with Japanese as English does. It is their knowledge of the meaning and the writing of the kanji that gives the Chinese the decisive edge. Curious. My idea was simply to learn from this common experience and get the kanji and English reading. Okay, I get it. Having learned to write the kanji in this way, which I repeat is the most logical and rational part of the study of Japanese, one is in a much better position to concentrate on the often irrational and principled problem of learning how to pronounce them. In a word, it is hard to imagine a less efficient way of learning the reading and writing of the kanji than to study them simultaneously. And yet, this is the method that all Japanese textbooks and courses follow. The bias is too deeply ingrained to be rooted out by anything but experience, on the contrary. Many of these ideas and impressions, let it be said, only developed after I had myself learned the kanji and polished the first edition of the book. At the time, I was convinced that proficiency in writing the kanji could be attained in 4 to 6 weeks if one were to make a full-time job of it. Of course, the claim raised more eyebrows than hopes among teachers with far more experience than I had. Still, my own experience with studying the kanji and the relatively small numbers of individuals I have directed in the methods of the book bears that estimate out, and I do not hesitate to repeat it here. Let's see how it translates this, because traducir selección al English. Español. Confirma esta estimación. Okay. A word about how the book came to be written. I began my study of the kanji 1 month after coming to Japan, with absolutely no previous knowledge of the language. Because travels through Asia had delayed my arrival by several weeks, I took up residence at the language school in Kamakura, and began studying on my own without enrolling in the course already in progress. A certain impatience with my own ignorance compared to everyone around me, coupled with the freedom to devote myself exclusively to the language studies, helped me during those first 4 weeks to make my way through a basic introductory grammar. This provided a general idea on how the language was constructed, but of course, almost no facility in using it. Through conversations with the teachers and students, I quickly picked up the impression that I had best begin learning the kanji as soon as possible, since this was sure to be the greatest chore of all. Having no idea at all how the kanji worked in the language, yet having found my own pace, I decided, against the advice of nearly everyone around me, to continue to study on my own rather than joining one of the beginners' classes. Fire! The first few days I spent poring over whatever I could find on the history and etymology of Japanese characters, and examining the wide variety of systems on the market for studying them. It was during those days that the basic idea underlying the method of this book came to me. The following weeks I devoted myself day and night to experimenting with the idea, which worked well enough to encourage me to carry on with it. Before the month was out, I had learned the meaning and rating of some 1900 characters and had satisfied myself that I would retain what I had memorized. It was not long before I became aware that something extraordinary had taken place. For myself, the method I was following seemed so simple, even childish, that it was almost an embarrassment to talk about it, and it had happened as such a matter of course that I was quite unprepared for the reaction it caused. On the one hand, some at school accused me of having a short-term photographic memory that would fade with time. On the other hand, there were those who pressed me to write up my methods for their benefit. But it seemed that there was too much left to learn of the language for me to get distracted by either side. Within a week, however, I was persuaded to let at least my notes circulate. Since most everything was either in my head or jotted illegibly in notebooks or flashcards, I decided to give an hour each day to writing everything up systematically. 1 hour soon became 2, then 3, and in no time all I had laid everything else to complete the task. By the end of the 3rd month, I bought a camera-ready copy to Nanjing University in Nagoya for printing. During the 2 months it took to prepare it for printing, I added an introduction. Through the kind help of Mrs. Iwamoto Keiko of Tuttle Publishing Company, most of the 500 copies were distributed in Tokyo bookstores, where they sold out within a few months. After the month I spent studying how to write the kanji, I did not return to my formal review of what I had learned. I was busy trying to devise another method for simplifying the study of written characters, which was later completed as a companion volume to the first 3. Remembering the kanji 2, a systematic guide to reading the kanji. Oh, interesting. A German edition appeared under the title Die Kanji lernen und behalten 2. Systematische Anleitung zu den Lesungen der japanischen Schriftzeichen. Frankfurt, Klostermann. The second volume was later followed by Remembering the Kanji 3, Writing and Reading Japanese Characters for Upper Level Proficiency. When I would meet a new character, I would learn it as I had the others, but I have never felt the need to retrace my step or repeat any of the work. Admittedly, the fact that I now use the kanji daily in my teaching, research, and writing is a distinct advantage. But I remain convinced that whatever facility I have, I owe to the procedures outlined in this book. Perhaps only one who has seen the method through to the end can appreciate both how truly uncomplicated and obvious it is, and how accessible to any average student willing to invest the time and effort. For while the method is simple and does eliminate a great deal of wasted effort, the task is still not an easy one. It requires as much stamina, concentration, and imagination as one can bring to it. But that was crazy. Okay, let's see. Study. Starts with kanji 1. 1. Click to enter your story. One line to rule them all. One way to write it. One scroll to the from left to right and with a pen left behind it. This is awesome. Retarded to the true. Itch. Did the stuff you just read help you? I think so. Like with reading kanji or understanding it and stuff. I guess with the approach that you have to be able to like use this book, right? Or you mean these things? Do you mean the long shit that I read out loud, or do you mean these small things? Or do you mean the other thing, this kind of thing? The one line to rule them all, one way to write it. Would you recommend this book for a beginner to learn for people, or rather for people who already have a degree of knowledge? According to the guy, it's like for beginners, right? Because it is kind of the difficult and scary thing about Japanese is the kanji, right? And I relate to that, right? My own experience relates to that. It looks like insurmountable and like it kind of turns you away from everything else, right? So his strategy of tackling that first and then after that kind of pursuing more grammar or whatever, I guess it makes sense, right? It lets you dive into stuff, I guess. I haven't done it though. We'll see. Let us begin with a group of all of which you probably knew before you ever cracked the covers of this book. Each kanji has been provided with a single keyword to represent the basic meaning. Some of these characters will also serve as primitive elements to help form other kanji, when they will take a meaning different than the meaning they have as kanji. Although it is not necessary at this stage to memorize the special primitive meaning of these characters, a special remark preceded by a star has been appended. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, according to the guy, but I was asking you specifically because you already have a bit of knowledge. So I thought you would have an opinion if it would really help a beginner or just be too much. I don't know. I haven't done it. But my experience, like in my experience, what he says about Japanese teachers is right. For example, my mom, right? The self-fulfilling prophecy element is there because all of them learned the characters so like super far away, right? Sorry, and throughout a long amount of time. So it's like they cannot conceive that it can be done in a different way. I think it depends on why you want to learn, I guess. In my case, for example, I think reading, etc., is how I learned English, right? I learned English reading and writing almost as much as watching and all these kind of things, right? On the internet, basically. So for me, reading would unlock a lot of stuff, right? It seems from me that the book is written for someone who kind of already knows a little bit, because here it says, "Let us begin with a group of 15 kanji, all of which you probably knew before you ever cracked the covers of this book." So, for example, I did know all of these, right? I knew all of these 15 kanji. What are these notes? I want to know what the fucking... I think it's the number of strokes or what. It's Nisanshi, 11, 14 strokes. Four strokes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, the brackets are the number of characters. I was looking if it was like a fucking note or something. footnote. North to south, west to east, northwest to southeast, northwest to southeast. Lol. We shall postpone learning the primitive elements that make up this character. Top hat and animal legs. We will glide over them until later. Top hat, animal legs. This distinguishes 7 from the character for spoon. As a primitive, this form takes on the meaning of diced, cut into little pieces, consistent with both the way the character is written and with its association for the kanji for cut, to be learned in a later lesson. Just as Arabic's numeral is composed of a small circle followed by the larger one by a short line followed by a longer line. If you take care to remember the stroke order of each kanji, you will not have trouble later keeping it distinct from the kanji for power. As a primitive, we use this kanji to mean baseball team or simply baseball. The meaning, of course, is derived from the 9 players who make up a team. Didn't know that. I did know this is Q, like Q, baseball. It uses this one, I think. Turn this character 45 degrees either way and you have the X, used for the numeral 10. As a primitive, this character sometimes keeps its meaning of 10 and sometimes signifies needle. The latter derived from the character for needle. Since the primitive is used in the kanji itself, there is no need to worry about confusing the two. In fact, we shall be following this procedure regularly. Curious. Like several of these, the kanji for mouth is a clear pictograph. Since there are no circular shapes in this kanji, the square must be used to depict the circle. As a primitive, this form also means mouth. Any of the range of possible images that the word suggests an opening for an entrance of a cave, a river, a bottle, or even the largest hole in your head can be used for the primitive meaning. Iriguchi. This kanji is intended to be a pictograph of the sun. Recalling what we said in the previous frame about round forms, it is easy to detect the circle and the big smile that characterize our simplest drawings of the sun, like those yellow badges with the words "Have a nice day." Used as a primitive, this kanji can mean sun or day, or a tongue wagging in a mouth. This latter meaning, incidentally, derives from an old character outside the standard list, meaning something like saith, and written almost exactly the same, except the stroke in the middle does not touch the right side. Whoa, crazy. This character is actually a picture of the moon, and the two horizontal eyes representing the left eye and mouth of the mythical man on the moon. Actually, the Japanese see a hair in the moon, but it is a little far-fetched to find one in the kanji. And 1 month, of course, is 1 cycle of the moon. As a primitive element, this character can take out the sense of moon, flesh, or part of the body. The reasons for the latter two meanings will be explained in another chapter. Another pictograph this kanji looks like, well, I know. Another pictograph this kanji looks like a bird's eye view for a rice field divided into 4 plots. Be careful when writing this character to get the orders of the strokes correct. You will find that it follows perfectly the principle stated in frame. When used as a primitive element, the meaning of rice field is the most common, but now and again it will take the meaning of brains, from the fact that it looks a bit like that tangle of grey matter nestled inside of our skulls. Here again, if we round out the corners of this kanji and curve out the middle strokes, we get something resembling an eye. As a primitive, the kanji keeps its sense of eye, or sometimes to be more specific, an eyeball. When placed in the surrounding of a complex kanji, the primitive will sometimes be turned on in its side like this. Although only 9 of the 15 kanjis treated in this lesson are formally listed as primitives, the elements that join together to make up other kanji, some of the others, may also take on that function from time to time, only not with enough frequency to merit learning them as separate primitives elements and attaching special meanings to them. I didn't know what I read. Although 9 of the 15 kanji read in this lesson formally listed as primitives, the elements that join together to make up other kanji, some of the others may also take that function from time to time, only not with enough frequency to merit learning them as separate primitive elements and attaching special meanings to them. In other words, whenever one of the kanji already learned is used in another kanji, it will retain its keyword meaning unless we have assigned it special primitive meaning. Lol. Okay, these are for another day. Well, I think if I study this, I will probably do it on my own, not all day here. But maybe I will do it all day here. Who knows? It depends. But yeah, enough for today. Thank you for being here, and goodbye.